You might call the Fire Emblem games tactical turn-based RPGs or political dramas told through the lens of war. But to me, what those 3 decades worth of games represent are stories of heroes. From honorable lords and knights who stamp out oppression to ragtag bandits and sellswords with hearts of gold, Fire Emblem is a celebration of justice, righteous war, and the ultimate prevailing of good over evil. It's classic high fantasy right there alongside Lord of the Rings and Arthurian legend. This theme of heroism is carefully crafted in each game in familiar ways. You've got strong characters with diverse personalities, plots laden with mystery and plenty of twists, and brilliant gameplay mechanics such as permanent character death, which truly make the player feel like they are a struggling force fighting for good. Most importantly though, bringing home these heroic ideals right before you even press start are 5 powerful notes. You have to admit, the Fire Emblem theme is one of Nintendo's most iconic, right up there with Pokemon, Metroid, and Super Mario. I remember playing Smash Bros. Melee as a kid and jamming out to that Fire Emblem medley before I even knew what game it came from. And 10 years later, playing the 30th anniversary edition of Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light for the first time, I recognized that main theme as if I heard it yesterday. Composer Yuka Tsujiyoko, with some mentorship from chiptune legend Hirokazu Tanaka, composed the music for the first Fire Emblem game. Since then, she's participated both directly and indirectly in the musical scoring of every other installment in the series. And it's no surprise either. The theme she created over 30 years ago is so compelling and memorable that it's referenced in nearly every game thereafter, even in the trailer of the upcoming Fire Emblem Engage.
One strike will decide it all.
Please grant me your strength.
It's just so heroic and uplifting, brimming with so much power and drama for such a short tune. Just what is it that makes this theme so effective? Believe me when I say it's really not too difficult to see why. Let's start how we always do, with a melody and a harmony. Of course, we have to start with the first game, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, so that's what we'll be analyzing today. Now, a couple of things stand out here immediately. We're in the key of C major, which is as fundamental as you can get with no flats or sharps. This first measure firmly plants us on the tonic chord with this simple rooted bass and a melody that outlines the notes G, C, and E, which is in second inversion. An inversion is a way to give a different feeling to a harmony by stacking the notes of the chord in a different order. A non-inverted C major chord, C, E, and G, has a very vanilla and pure sound to it. A first inversion, E, G, and C, gives a softer, more open feel to the chord. And this second inversion, G, C, and E, subjugates the root, the C, by bearing it in the middle and emphasizing the third, the E, by putting it up top. This inversion tends to feel more lofty because of this. It's the same inversion used in the first few bars of Taps, and lends to its associations with bravery, reverence, and the end of the day. Now, a second inversion C major chord isn't too much to write home about, but it's a great place to start. What comes next is what really drives this theme home. That second measure has a really rich sound to it. This subdominant chord has an almost melancholic or wistful quality to it. That's because it's a major seventh, the classic dreamy jazz chord. A 1-4 progression is fairly common, but turning that subdominant into a major seventh is a bold and interesting move. We're swiftly taken from our comfy C major tonic to a new and strange place. This is even more prominent in later renditions of the theme, which add more parts of the chord in different instrumentations. Notice that our bass continues this same pattern here in this measure too. This repetition calls to mind marches and military songs, which makes perfect sense for Fire Emblem. A minor 2 chord takes us further from our home base of C, but a major 5th, followed by its dominant 7th, leads us back before we wander too far off. Again, this progression isn't an atypical one, but that major 7th does so much to characterize these bars and lends a lofty air to them. Note also that the melody consists of these 2 gentle rises and falls. Though the progression in upbeat tempo gives the song a lot of momentum, the simple melody keeps us grounded. In these 4 bars, we've already painted a solid picture of a hero, a steady and majestic figure with a range of experiences, both good and bad, familiar and foreign. Now the second phrase is interesting because it mirrors the first closely. Repetition is so important in music to enforce an idea and keep it in the listener's brain, especially so for a theme. So of course our melody returns to its same second inversion we saw before. But here's what's interesting. It's tricky to hear, but the bass itself is an inversion too. Listen to both phrases and you should hear the difference. The bass is in first inversion, and it sounds a little less firm or resolute, like the music is still on its way somewhere else. It's not really settled down. This is a perfect way to repeat a musical idea, but keep it fresh and moving without sounding, well, repetitive. The next measure harkens back to the second one, when we had a dramatic jump to an interesting chord. This time it's to the dominant 7th of the submediant. It still has that lofty quality of a 7th chord, but is a little less dreamlike and more action-packed. This progression of 2 major chords separated by 1.5 steps is what I like to call the Star Wars progression.
We're doomed.
It has that movie-like, epic quality to it that adds to the heroic qualities of our piece. And the melody departs from its original form to highlight the 7th interval in our chord here. Very nice. A simple progression of falling fifths brings us right back to our tonic to begin the theme again. I really like how the submediant here falls naturally into the supertonic that we saw before in the third measure. And there's our familiar rise and fall of our melody again, though without a second fall. Again, the composer uses repetition to reinforce our theme, but tweaks the way it's presented each time to make things interesting. Speaking of repetition, the previous measures do repeat now, except for the last 2. These squeeze the dominant into the second to last measure so we can end on the tonic nice and strong. And that's about it. There's a little more to this theme I could talk about, including the nice interlude that comes next, but I like to keep things as video articles and not video essays. You know, the concept of heroism is a tricky thing to employ without coming off as condescending or self-righteous, and I think Fire Emblem gets it mostly right, due in no small part to the power of its music. It's not often you find a theme so memorable that it survives 30 years and counting, and that on top of it being so effective and compelling despite its 8-bit simplicity. Though times change and great deeds fade to myth and legend, music survives like heroes do, forever to be remembered and retold.